3 o'clock on Good Friday marks the hour of the death of Jesus and is the traditional time when Christian communities gather to commemorate this event at the heart of our Christian faith. This year, we're unable to gather, but we still pray in our homes, our bubbles, united with Christians around the world, and in this time of prayer, with people who will lead us in from their homes around our land of Aotearoa, New Zealand. In a moment of stillness and silence as we begin, let us focus on the cross, which is for us the pathway to resurrection. Let us know our need for God. Let us call to mind those we love. Let us remember those in our neighbourhoods, our families, our country, and around the world who suffer alone. May our prayer this afternoon be in solidarity with all people in our struggling world, brought to our knees by this virus, that we might all know the love of Jesus for us and the presence of Jesus with us as we pray.
See his hands, see the cruel marks of bitterness and shame. See his hands reaching out to take the whole world's pain. Oh, see his hands. Oh, see his wounds. Oh, see his hands reaching out to the world. Feel his hands, feel his touch upon your tear-stained face. Feel his hands gently lifting you to beauty and grace. Oh, feel his hands. Oh, feel his wounds. Oh, feel his hands reaching out to your pain. Take his hands in your own, touch those precious scars. Take the love from his wounds, heal your wounded heart. Oh, take his hand. Oh, touch his wounds. Oh, feel his love flowing into your heart.
Tēnā tātou katoa, nau mai haere mai ki te miru o te mātou whānau Elliot. The betrayal. Jesus went with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a garden. We know it as the Garden of Gethsemane. We know that Judas also went there with soldiers and guards of chief priests and Pharisees. We know that Jesus knew he was going to be betrayed. At this time, he wasn't afraid. In fact, he fronted up to the soldiers and asked them, "Who are you looking for?" And they said to Jesus that they were looking for Jesus the Nazarene. Jesus was like, "That's me." Not sure if it was shock, but they all fell to the ground. Jesus asked again, "Who are you looking for?" And again the soldiers said to Jesus, "Jesus the Nazarene." Jesus was like, "Dudes, I've told you, that's me. You're looking at him." Jesus then spoke to both the soldiers and God and said, "You have found me. Let these men go." He wanted to fulfill his promise to God that he would not lose any of those men that God had given him. Then it is written in the Gospel, as we once again know, that Simon Peter drew a sword and cut off the ear of Malchus, a slave. Jesus told Simon Peter, "Put away your sword," and said these profound words, "Shall I not drink the cup that the Father gave me?" Kia kaha, kia toa, kia manawa nui.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
After all that, what happened after Jesus got arrested?
Oh, yep. He was sent to a high priest. I'm pretty sure that's what I said in the passage. And like, he was sent to him as he was arrested, and this high priest, I think his name was Caiaphas, had manipulated the Jews with an idea that one person should die rather than a lot of people. And obviously, at the time, that one person would be Jesus.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So where were the disciples during this time of his arrest?
Peter was there with another disciple. They got to walk with Jesus through the courtyard. But Peter had took off to the gate. He was scared. At the gates, there were a bunch of like slaves and Jews and soldiers outside, keeping warm around a fire. And someone asked him if he was a follower of Christ, and he straight said no.
Oh, he said no?
He said no.
Wow.
I think we can relate that to ourselves today.
What do you mean?
Like, I'm pretty sure there's times in our lives that we're kind of like Peter denying Christ.
That's
How?
an example.
Like going to mass, for example. Like those who look at the time when they just not into being into mass, like they just look at the time and they're like, "Oh yes, lunchtime," or you know,
Those who are forced to go to mass.
those who are forced. How about those who are not strong enough in their faith? Going to mass, obviously, but maybe those who don't understand the faith as much in relation to issues in our world,
What kind of issues?
like political issues.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they had those petitions out last year
Yeah,
to support the
End of life bill,
yeah.
abortion
the
bill.
abortion bill.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, what's one thing we could take out of the passage then, and also our points of like ourselves being like Peter denying Christ? What's something we could take out of?
That's a good question. What we can take out of this is that I can see that we're a lot more resourced than Peter was when he was at the time of his the time of that denial. But I know that today's time that we've got church, we've got support from our friends, we've got cell groups, we've got prayers, Bibles to read and stuff. So those are some of the stuff that equips us in our faith.
Yeah. All right. And what's one message that we could obviously take out of this that we could share with everyone here?
Don't be a Peter.
Don't be a Peter, eh?
Pray heaps and don't be a Peter.
Sweet.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Jesus was taken to be questioned about his teachings and his followers.
Why do you ask me? I've said everything publicly in the places where we gather and where we worship. Why don't you ask those who have listened to me?
God struck Jesus.
Why do you speak to the high priest like that?
Have I said anything wrong? I have not. And if I have spoken truly, why do you strike me?
Simon Peter was outside warming himself by the fire, and a servant girl said to him,
Are you one of Jesus' friends? I do not know the man. Are you one of Jesus' friends? I do not know who you are talking about. Are you one of Jesus' friends? I do not know the man.
and the rooster crowed.
What do you guys think about that passage?
I think it wasn't good that the guard stuck Jesus.
That wasn't very nice. What about you, Isaac?
I think it was hard for Peter to be brave about not denying the people who asked him
Why do you think he was scared?
that because he might get crucified too.
Yeah. So where can we get our courage from then?
From Jesus
Yeah.
and the saints.
Yeah, in the saints, we can pray. That's right. To be courageous in following Jesus.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
So Jesus was brought to Pilate by the Jews, and they did it quite quickly because they wanted to be able to enjoy the Passover. Pilate came out, and I don't think he was very happy, and he wanted to know what the charges were being brought against this man. And they just answered he was a criminal, really. Pilate wasn't very happy, and the Jews handed him over, and Pilate wanted to know why they weren't going to deal with Jesus himself. But they said to him that they didn't have the right to execute this man.
So Pilate goes back inside and questions Jesus and basically asks him, what did you do? And Jesus doesn't really say very much. So Pilate says, well, are you a king? And Jesus said, well, have you heard about, did somebody tell you this, or have you heard about it? And Pilate's response is, well, I'm not a Jew, you know. And so he says, well, what are you then?
And then Jesus talks a little bit about his kingdom and how if his kingdom did belong to this world, his followers wouldn't have handed him over. And then Pilate asks the big question, what is truth?
So on reflecting on the reading, one of the things that I have been thinking about is truth, and how we often use social media to not really be overly honest. And we can put things on a post, or we can read things on a post about something or somebody, and we judge them immediately because of it. And I wonder if that's what happened to Jesus, if he had been judged by people, not because of what he said, but because of what people were saying about him more so.
So that brings us, I guess, around the whole question of how quick we are to judge people, and trying to determine, or we take 2 seconds to look at somebody and make a determination about them. And I guess that was what was going on here. And in today's age, where somebody might do a post and make a judgment, hundreds of thousands of people might see it. But it was the same back then, because there would have been a whole bunch of people who were just there to be nosy and to watch what was going on.
In today's world also, I guess we live in that relativist culture where you can have your truth and I can have my truth, and we're all okay with it. So again, it comes back to the big question, what is truth?
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
And Jesus couldn't do anything, could he? Stuffed. Poor old Jesus.
I feel it was Pilate that could do something at this stage.
And Pilate could find no guilt in Jesus. And he took him out to the crowds, and he said, you have a custom that on Passover I release somebody for you. Who shall I release?
And the crowd said, Barabbas. Release Barabbas, not Jesus.
And so Pilate released Barabbas, and he sent Jesus to be scourged.
The soldiers beat Jesus and whipped him, and they put a crown of thorns on his head and a cloak of purple on his shoulders, and they mocked him.
And he was sent back to Pilate, and Pilate took this broken man, this mocked king, and said to the crowd, behold the man. And they shouted back,
Crucify him! Crucify him!
And Pilate said, take him yourselves and crucify him. I find no guilt against this man. And they said, we have a law, and according to that law he ought to die. And Pilate became afraid. And he took Jesus aside and he asked him, where are you from?
And Jesus didn't answer. And Pilate said, do you not realize that I can have you crucified or spare your life? And Jesus said, you would have no power at all if it had not come to you from above.
And Pilate again tried to release him, but the crowds shouted back that you are no friend of Caesar's if you release this man. And so Pilate took Jesus out again and said, "Behold your king." And they cried out,
Crucify him! Crucify him!
We were again incredibly moved by that image of Jesus as a mocked person, somebody who was brutalised and with a crown of thorns and a robe of purple on his shoulders.
And we thought of all the people in our society who are downtrodden and disrespected and in need of love and attention.
And we thought how much that links to the later part of that passage where Jesus talks about power and Pilate and who are the powerless and who are those who think they have power when in fact they don't. And how do we wield power, whether it's in whānau or whether it's just in our workplaces or whether it's in really important positions like governments and places of power like that. And how poignant it is that when we're at home in our houses, in our bubbles, that power sort of feels much different in this context, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And at the end of this passage, Pilate hands Jesus over to be crucified.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
It's the story of Jesus sentencing to death. So what do we think of that story? What happened to Jesus?
He carried his cross to Golgotha.
Okay, he carried his cross. So what happened after that?
They nailed him onto the cross, crucified him, and laid in between two other prisoners.
What happened after that?
The soldiers divided his garments among them.
So what do we think of Good Friday?
I think that today, Good Friday, marks the crucifixion and dying of Jesus and the sacrifice of our sins.
It reminds us of humanity, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. It reminds us that we are to be in solidarity with those crucified by this disease, by poverty and other struggle of human life.
Thank you.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
In this scene, we have Jesus in his last hour, looking down from the cross and seeing his mother and his beloved disciple. He gazes at them and says to his mother, "Woman, behold your son," and to his disciple, "Behold your mother." And the beloved disciple takes Mary into his care.
After that, Jesus said, "I thirst." Someone soaked a sponge in wine and gave it to him. When he had taken the wine, he said, "It is finished." Then he bowed his head and died.
My mind goes to Mary at the foot of the cross. Mary, whose mind would have gone back to the miraculous conception of Jesus, his birth, his life, his miracles, the changing of water into wine. Everything must have passed through her head as she stood looking at her son in such a state, in such a terrible state. And then she remembered that prophecy, "A sword will pierce your soul." This was the moment that Jesus predicted. And we all have to look at Mary under the cross, and that's what we've all got to accept, the crosses in our lives, and unite them with Jesus hanging on the cross, who gave his life for us and who is now looking after us with the Father from heaven. So we are very blessed, and we all are united in this great mystery of the cross.
Showed us how human he is. By his last concern, who will look after his mother, his treasure, when he's gone. So let us be the John, let us be that disciple who will look after their treasure here on earth.
This is a moment of what looks like terrible torture, and it is, but it's also this moment of great love. We see Jesus in his absolute self-giving, God in his absolute self-giving, inviting us to respond in love. And we see that he's not alone. So many people are frightened of loneliness, and especially at this time, this terrible crisis, we see many people dying alone, but we know that ultimately we're never alone, and that God is with us, Jesus is with us, and Mary, his mother, is with us. And when Jesus cries out that he thirsts, there is that on a physical level, but also a deeper level. He's thirsting for our response of love. And so when I reflect on this moment, which is so great, so much a part of our lives, is to no matter how much suffering we have, no matter how bad it gets, we're not alone, and God is asking for our response. And when we give it completely, we know that this isn't the end of the story, the cross isn't where it finishes, and that we're looking forward always to what comes afterwards, the resurrection.
When greatest gain I count but loss and pour contempt on all my pride. Forbid it, Lord, that I should boast, save in the death of Christ my God. All the vain things that charm me most, I sacrifice them to His blood. See from His head, His hands, His feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. Did ever such love and sorrow meet, or thorns compose so rich a crown?
Jesus did not suffer the pain of having his feet broken. But at the present time, some of us may feel that our legs have been broken because of lockdown. But Jesus is not in lockdown, and Jesus is not in isolation. So resurrection is never in lockdown. So all will be well.
I have reflected on the moment that the soldiers pierced a lance into the side of Jesus. It's like the moment I have betrayed and I have sinned. Interestingly, after the piercings, a lance into the side of Jesus, immediately the blood and the water come out. I just think that moment is the grace, the love, and the mercy of God pour out to wash away our sins, our iniquities.
Such a special time in this time that we have been invited to journeying with Jesus into Jerusalem and being with Him. As the soldier today, he pierced Jesus and the water and blood come out, and we are called to be witness of these things in our daily life, that you and I, we are the witnesses of this love of Jesus Christ, that He has been invited us to come deeper and deeper with His journey on the cross.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, into your kingdom.
After Joseph of Arimathea, a member of the Sanhedrin and a secret follower of Jesus for fear of the Jews, went to Pilate to ask for the body. Pilate agreed. Nicodemus, also a member of the Sanhedrin and a secret follower of Jesus, arrived with myrrh and aloe, almost 100 pounds. Together they prepared the body according to Jewish custom, washing the body, wrapping the body in cloth and spices. Near where Jesus was crucified there was a garden. In the garden there was a new tomb. They laid the body of Jesus in the tomb as the Sabbath was soon approaching.
So guys, we heard a story where two grown men, two important men in society, were afraid of acknowledging Jesus and the love they had for him. What do you think about that? What does it mean for you?
I think it means that you should not be afraid of Jesus even if people don't know him or care about him.
That's really good. And what do you think of those two grown men, Joseph and Nicodemus?
At first they were scared of telling anyone that they were with Jesus, but then they didn't care what anyone thought and they helped burying him.
That's awesome. We should all live like that, but it's difficult, isn't it?
When someone we love dies, it's such a hard experience, and sometimes we can feel quite hollow and empty and wonder where the person has gone, that only a few minutes earlier they were here. Today we stand at the foot of the cross. We feel that hollowness and we wait on the promise of God.
E te karaiti, e whakanui ana, e whakamoimiti ana mātou ki a koe. Nā tau ripeka tapu, ko whakaengia te ao e koe.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
Let us stand now and in silence say the Lord's Prayer in our own language.
Take his hand in your own, touch your precious scars. Take the light